Struggling to get your guitar plugins sounding as huge as a real amp? I've spent almost 2 decades recording guitar for my own records and for major label albums. And in the time, I picked up some amazing hidden gem plugins that instantly transform dull DI tracks into massive commercial ready guitar tones before you even start mixing. So in this video, I'm going to show you 12 powerful plugins that'll make your guitar tones massive, crushing, and studio worthy without blowing thousands on amps or pedals. So let's dive right into Ableton. So when it comes to building guitar tones in the box, one thing I like to do is approach it as if I was coming from an engineering standing point before I even think about the mix process. Now for this video, the amp sim that I'm going to be using is one I've been demoing from Polychrome DSP, which has honestly kind of blown my mind a little bit, but everything this company has made has been pretty sick. And this one's called Nutcracker and is straight dirty distortion made for metal guitar amp. And all I'm doing is going through and just finding presets that sound good so I don't have to reinvent the wheel and just moving from there. So let's go to the main guitar tone and I'm going to turn off all the other stuff and just solo this guitar tone so we can hear it. Excellent. So, all right, so this amp is basically going to be the only amp that you're going to see throughout this whole track, and it's going to be in a video that will be on the channel very shortly. And I am approaching every guitar, just going preset hunting and getting something that I feel is fun and inspiring, and I don't really want to think about it. I just want to get guitar tones and move on. So let's pretend this is our amp tone. And from there, everything else we're going to do is carve. And the way I like to look at these things are my pre-amplifier stage and my post-amplifier stage. So in the preamp stage, there's a couple of things I like to do and take a look at before I go too heavy-handed on dialing in the guitar tone, if I know the guitar tone is pretty much where I want it to be. In this case, it is. Now, a couple of years back, I was going down a rabbit hole, and the reason was I was fascinated with Slate's virtual mic system where you can pick different microphones. Also, Antares had like some sort of plugin where you can change the timbre of a person's voice to get it to be exactly what you were looking for a particular section. And in my mind, I was like, why doesn't this type of thing exist for guitars? So going down that rabbit hole, I came across the Line 6 guitar, which can do different things. I also came across this video from like Lundgren Pickups. And in the video, he's swapping out pickups. And I immediately was like, why isn't that a thing with modern technology? Like, we have these two promising things. Why are we so married to the guitar pickups that I recorded? Especially if you only have one guitar, it's really limiting because you then have to like EQ your guitar DI to sound different. And part of me was like, what if there was a plugin that could change all that? And there is actually. So the first one I want to focus on is this really low-key plugin that not a lot of people know about that I think is absolutely crazy cool. And it is called Re-Guitar from Blue Cat Audio. And it's really simple. You tell it, hey, I have humbuckers and I want them to go to either humbuckers or single coil. You have multiple different options. So in this case, I wanted this lead to sound different because the guitars were all recorded with the same guitar and I didn't want to EQ like crazy and guesstimate. I just wanted to put a plugin in that kind of before the amp would change the timbre and allow me to get something that cut through the mix a little bit more and get it right at the source. So let's take a listen to this guitar in solo. Now it gave it like a little bit more of a twanginess, which, you know, I was cool with. Let me see if I can. So let's mess with a few others. So you can tell there is a difference when we go from humbucker to single coil. But this was just a really cool plugin that I stumbled across, and whenever I usually use it on leads or harmonies when it's recorded with the same guitars, just to get a little bit different of a timbre. And also I feel that when I start using EQ on a DI too heavily, I really can take things in a place where I didn't mean it to. This one allows me to just cross-reference multiple different types of pickups essentially and get a sound that I'm pretty stoked on. Now, if a band's recording and sends it in, or if you have your own audio interface and, you're just recording directly into the audio interface, for the most part, they're all pretty good, but they're missing the quality that a good DI box can introduce. So that's the next step is, okay, I've got the pickups that I like, or my pickup sounds fine. Is the DI signal, could it use a little bit more juice? And there's two plugins that I like to do with this. All right, one's from Kush Audio and one is from, I think, United Plugins. And this DI fix is the cheapest no-brainer I would ever recommend to anyone. Now, it's pretty simple. It just changes the harmonic density of the guitar tone. So let's. Just adds a little bit more sweetness, which is what you would get from using like a DI box of some sort. And the red is doing something very similar. I'm going to move this actually over here. Notice how I'm going to engage them both, and you can hear how these two plugins that are one-trick ponies essentially really add a lot of weight and thickness to just the guitar signal. So these are two really, really simple, great plugins. They're really easy to use. Just turn the knobs until everything sounds good. Now from there, and you might want to see the preset Intro to Hell Nuts. Sounds sick. All right, so next let's go to these little leads right here, especially right here. So let's turn off everything but the newest thing I've introduced. So here are these tremolo pitch guitars. So not too shabby, and we'll bring them in with the main rhythm guitars too, so you can hear those. Now, when you have guitars like these, something that immediately kind of disappears, especially with tremolo pitch guitars or even octaves, is kind of the bitiness that you want that guitar to have. It's supposed to convey a layered emotion, but a really useful tool to use that I'm a really big fan of after I've done my DI enhancing and stuff is to use a transient shaper, but not just like a broadband transient shaper, a specific multiband. Now, I used to use Audio Assault's multi-transient plugin, but it's either since been discontinued. I don't know what happened. It's no longer on their website, which has led me down the rabbit hole of just finding this Neutron one. And all I really do is aim to get a little bit before the 1K to 4K region to kind of pop a little bit. So if I disengage this, you can hear how that tremolo pick all of a sudden sounds like it's being dug into by the guitar player, and that digging in pushes it a little bit in front but away from the main guitar. So the main guitar is in its own pocket, and now this guitar is in its own pocket, and I'm not fighting with EQ yet. Really, really helpful tool. Another place I like to use this is in breakdowns that are very syncopated, like like where you get a lot of like down chugs, is to automate that transient shaper on with a little bit bitier of an attack and taking down the sustain. And it really helps the guitar sound even more pummeling right in those accented parts with the drums and the snare, so that you don't have to fight with it too much with EQ. Now, this guitar, let's see, Hellraiser Nuts is the preset that I'm using on this one. So we've got some cool transient shaping. Now let's go to one other processing trick that I like, and we're going to turn off some of these other things. All right, this next one also comes from Polychrome DSP, and it is the best pitch shifter plugin in the box I've heard. I used to really like the Neural DSP Gojira one that's in there, like a whammy pedal or something. It didn't do well with like heavy chords. It just would break apart. And it also didn't do really well with bass. And this one seems to do good with chords and bass. And also if you do a lot of like synths and things like that for dance music, or weird like bends that you want to do with your synths, this one can actually do it pretty well too, which is pretty cool. So it's very polyphonic friendly, not just like monophonic friendly, which is really, really nice to have. One trick with heavy rhythm guitars is to take the track, which I did here, double it, cut the part that you want, and then from there just tune it down so that it sounds thicker than it actually is. So let's go over here and listen to this sludge. And then bring it in. And let's bring that in with the main guitar. So it adds a nice amount of thickness in there. And from there, I like to usually on these guitars really make them gnarly sounding, disgusting almost. With layered guitars, I really like to get them just mangled. And one plugin that is actually a pretty cool distortion plugin that I've been messing with lately that I like on heavier guitars is this one from Reed over at Odo Audio. They make a really good amp sim called the 1111, which is really fun. And this one just mangles the shit out of everything. So let's take a listen. Yeah, this is the one. I really like this preset. It's just ridiculous. But if we bring it in slowly with this one, I'm going to take it out and bring it in. It just mangles it in such a nice way. But it's a really cool distortion plugin that just destroys everything you put it on, but in a great way. All right, so now we've pretty much taken care of all our pre-inserts of everything we want. All right, so the next one is a newer one I've added to my arsenal. I demoed it, and after I demoed it, I have not made any guitar tones in the box without it. It makes them sound real to me. I don't understand the voodoo of it, and I went down the rabbit hole to see if like maybe it's some sort of lie or voodoo. It's not. It sounds good. Anyone who argues, they're entitled to their opinions even when they're wrong, in my opinion. It's this plugin from Bogan Digital, and it's really simple. You plug it in, you play audio, you hit calibrate. I like the intense setting, and it emulates the movement of the speaker cone, but it does it in such a small way that the nuance of it just makes the guitar sound even more real. So let's play a part, bring it in, take it out. that, to me, that's a night and day difference. I can hear the difference in the movement of the speaker. Again, I don't understand the science of it. I've read the manual, and it's one of those things where I don't care how it works. I just know it sounds good to my ear and it's great. After I've added this plugin, the next one I like to use is to solve an issue that my workaround used to be, especially with in-the-box guitar tones. A lot of people run into, how do you get feedback? Feedback is so hard to get with amp sims in the box. One of the tricks I used to do was to duplicate the guitar part that had a ring out or whatever it was I was trying to emulate guitar tone feedback. I would put a transient shaper on it, push the attack, push the sustain, so you get this very enlarged guitar waveform. Then I would take the same amp and put it right after the transient shaper, dial the gain up all the way, and then blend the master to blend in. So every time there was like a ring out or whatever, the sustain from the transient shaper would help just make it go whoop, whoop. It's a pain in the butt. I hated doing it, especially on an automated, which led me down a rabbit hole to figure out there has to be some sort of plugin that someone has figured out to do for this one trick, this one thing that I need whenever I want that sound to happen, which actually, funny enough, led me to a video that Thomas McRockland from Polychrome DSP had done like a video demo of. It's a very old video. And when I saw it, I was just like, of course this company made this plugin. And again, it's Blue Cat Audio, and it's called a Q Fiend. So here's this like swell track thing that I have. So obviously it was recorded getting some feedback, but I wanted that to exaggerate more. So with this plugin, a Q Fiend, we're able to basically add in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or suspended ordered harmonics and really mangle it, dial in the wet and the dry signal, and get some cool stuff happening. So if I bring this in now, that's pretty sick. Let's take a listen to some different order harmonics. It's pretty sick. All right, let's bring this back down to 16. So yeah, if you're looking for some feedback sounds, this is again after the amplifier, and I put it after the IRDX. Now, the next one is a free plugin that is so sick on heavy guitars. Big fan, and it's this one right here. I just mess with the depth and get to a nice little spot between usually 1 and 10% is like the sweet spot. And let's take a listen to this guitar. If you don't know what over-the-top compression is, it's basically like bringing things up in volume and bringing things down in volume all at the same time. And it's a very heavily used processor within EDM and dance music and pop music. But on very thick, low-tuned guitars, this thing really helps that guitar just to stand out and get every nuance out. You don't want to go too heavy with it though, because then you're in the land of no return when it comes to the processing. But this is a really cool plugin to use, and when it works great. When it doesn't work great, it sounds too much. Awesome. Now, one plugin that I've been messing with also is this one right here. It just got released. Usually on guitars, I do like to use Soothe, BX Refinement, and sometimes Smooth Operator, and this is the new version of Smooth Operator. So on this particular track, I'm testing it out to see what I like, but so far, it does sound better than the original Smooth Operator. And let's take a listen with and without. Really helping to clean up that stuff. And then we bring into the track. Awesome. Now let's go to some guitar buzz processing. And one of the tricks I like to do, it's also a very dangerous one. So warning, caution, proceed with your own caution. Don't blame me if it doesn't work. Sometimes I like to move the guitars out of the way by 5 to 7 milliseconds. And the reason for it is it's within a small enough margin where it sounds natural, but also if the drums are dimed at 100 on the grid, that means that my drums will hit 5 milliseconds sooner with my bass to give that initial impact, and then the guitars are within a tolerance enough to feel natural with the drums and everything, but still give space to that transient. So this is something I like to experiment with. I don't always leave it on. Sometimes I will just automate it for choruses and then keep it on for breakdowns, but it's something I like to just And then next one next to it is now a free plugin, but I remember paying for it, is BX Spreadshed. 110 to 120%, usually a sweet spot. Probably want to hear this in solo. Just takes a little bit, and then over here on these guitars, I believe I am doing the same precision trick, but this one is 7, so I wanted it a little bit outside of the main guitars. You can hear it. All right, and lastly, this plugin right here, which you see how there's all these plugins. Something I like to do is just have the plugin chain here so I can put it on one insert, and then I can go and turn everything on and off how I want, have the amp sim afterwards, and then have another one for post, depending on what I'm gonna do, what I don't want to do. But Patchwork is one of the best plugins for minimizing all these plugin windows. Now, with all that said, I'm going to go through really quickly, turn off everything, play a portion of the track with just the amp sim by itself, and then we'll play with the plugins so you can hear the difference. right, so there you have it. 12 plugins that completely transform how I dial in incredible guitar tones right in the box before I even start mixing. But remember, these plugins won't save you if your amp tone isn't already dialed in first. That's why in this next video, I'm diving deep into some of the best amp sims you've probably never tried, but absolutely should.